I think it is important to feel outside the way we feel inside.
When I'm dressed like that, I'm more inclined to listen to Debussy or Chopin than to heavy metal.
People who love to sing, and a lot of people think they can sing, but maybe they can't sing. But this is a place where you can really go and find out, right? If you have hope to use your voice and sing. Is that true?
But when you adopt a dominant position,
Yeah.
you tend to produce more serotonin, and that helps balance out the stress, because when you have stage fright, you have a ton of cortisol building up.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this new episode of Sartorial Talks. Today, as you can immediately notice, we are not in our normal setup. We are not at home. We are not in France. We are in the United States of America, but in a very special place because we are in Beverly Hills. So I don't know if this name rings the bells in your head, but this is the place in Los Angeles, which is close to Hollywood. And we are surrounded here by all the major studios of movie. And this is a very interesting place. I've been only there once before, and I must admit it's quite an impressive environment. And today we are with our friend Skander Ladjimi, who is the founder and the head of the French Conservatory of Beverly Hills. Hello, Skander. How do you do?
Hello, Hugo. Very well, thank you.
And of course, my beautiful wife, Sonya, is with us today. How do you do, darling?
Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you.
California, you like the climate here.
I've always loved California. From the moment I step off the plane, I feel better.
And we discovered yesterday with Skander a little town close to Beverly Hills. We didn't know it's called Burbank.
Yes.
We love it, huh?
Yeah, it's very cozy place and adorable. Lots of
Yes.
nice
So
restaurants.
you may ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, why are we with a musician, the head of a French Conservatory of Beverly Hills? What does all this have to do with the Sartorial Talk, with the Sartorial journey? But first answer, as you can see, Mr. Ladjimi is very well dressed. I think he caught the virus of the Sartorial virus, I think 2-3 years ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, about that, almost 4.
4 years ago?
Almost.
Okay.
Almost, yeah.
And as you know, we launched a series of episodes with some of our followers and readers or people who are following Sartorial Talks. And we want to investigate with them why all of a sudden they decided to really jump in the big swimming pool, in the sartorial pool, and start to dress in more elegant way every day. And so we're going to discuss this with Skander because his conversion to the sartorial world is about 4 years old, and I'm very interested to know what make him decide to embrace this fantastic path. Second reason is that we notice with Sonya that among our public, we have a lot of classical musicians. Do you remember that recently, right? In a party, we had so many pianists.
A lot of pianists,
Yes.
right? And starting back in the day, we had Justin Mellon. Was
Exactly.
Probably our first actually famous musician that
Exactly. And now
joined
we
us.
have Michel d'Alberto, for example,
That's right.
very famous concertist. We have Jean-Paul Gasparian from the new generation, very big upcoming name in the classic music, classic piano. And we were trying to find bridges between the two worlds. Now, there's a lot of bridges between the classical music and the sartorial world. And namely one, which is very important, is that it's maybe one of the last activities in the world where they're still play with a dress code.
exactly.
That is to say, when you go on stage, most of the musicians, specifically when they play in solo, they are all very well dressed in white tie or black tie. And of course, orchestra also are playing in this dress code. And it's probably also why we have so many professional musicians who are interested in the sartorial movement. But before deep diving in all this, before speaking of the French Conservatory in Beverly Hills, which is a little slice of France in the middle of Hollywood, we have a surprise for you. Actually, Skander prepared a surprise for us, and as it is a surprise, I will not tell you what it is. You're going to see it right now. Here we go. What a beautiful gift for a thank you, Skander, because it's the first time that our music is played with real musicians, not in a studio. And it's something that is very important for us. I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, Justin Meland composed this track for us. It became the Sartorial Talks track. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, no need to go to Shazam. Shazam will not recognize this piece because it's a bespoke piece of music that has been composed for us by Justin Meland, the famous composer who's making all the big series on Netflix. So hello, Justin. How do you do, my friend? And so now we can say that we maybe are one of the rare YouTube channels in the world to have our original music and now our original music played by real musicians. What a treat. So, let's speak now about the French Conservatory of Music. And maybe you can introduce yourself quickly, explaining who you are, where are you coming from. And there's one thing with Skander is that he speaks perfect French. So that's a mystery man. How can it be that you speak such a good French?
That's an interesting question. Well, it's very simple.
Yes.
I am French and Swiss
Yes.
and Tunisian, and all those countries speak French.
Yes. So you're French, Swiss, and Tunisian.
Yes, my father is Tunisian and French. My mom is Swiss. I was born in Tunisia, but I grew up in Switzerland, France, and Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother tongue is French.
Okay. So you speak perfect French and perfect English. So
Skander, can you say your full name for me?
Oh, my full name is Skander Ladjimi.
Ladjimi. And what is the story behind your name?
So Ladjimi actually is pronounced Lajimi in Arabic.
Ladjimi, yeah.
I believe it means from elsewhere, from the stranger, the foreigner.
Oh, okay.
I think it comes from my father's family when a part of his family arrived with the Ottoman Empire in Tunisia. They did not speak Arabic, and so they were called the foreigners, and that name stuck.
I see. Thank you.
So that's what it means. And Skander means Alexander, just in case you were wondering.
I see.
Oh, Skander is the Oriental
It's
translation?
the Arabic version of it, except that Alexander has the particle al, which means the,
Mhm.
and Skander doesn't. To be exactly the same name would have to be El Skander,
Okay.
but it's just Skander. So it's like Xander, if you will,
Okay,
in English,
okay.
instead of Alexander.
Okay, now you know all the etymology of the Skander name and Ladjimi. So now let's deep dive into the French Conservatory of Music. And we want to know, why did you decided to open a conservatory, a French conservatory, because the French is very important
Yes, it is.
in the title, in Beverly Hills. How can that happen? Did you notice that there was some kind of a market for you here, or there were people who needed the French way of teaching music? What is the beginning of this story for you? And when did you open this? And tell us a little bit about the genesis of the French Conservatory of Beverly Hills.
Sure. I mean, it came a bit as a coincidence. Originally, we were not aiming at coming to the United States. Back in 2009, the president of the International Conservatory of Paris, Madame Françoise Levéchamp, commissioned me to become a project manager for the International Conservatory,
Yes.
hoping to open conservatories in the Gulf area, the Emirates in particular, in Abu
Okay.
Dhabi.
It means Abu Dhabi.
Abu
Qatar.
Dhabi, Dubai, Qatar. We looked at Bahrain as well.
Okay.
And in order to do that, my mission was to develop curriculum that would be parallel to the classical curriculum, with the mission to preserve and the local musical heritage.
Yes.
So it would also work not just as, oh, here we are bringing our French culture to you. No. It was there to help develop the local musical tradition,
Yes.
help preserve it, and help it expand. And the thing is, because I have Arabic origin, I also had an understanding of traditional Arabic music,
Which
how
is
it
normally
functions.
monophonic, right? This is how we listen to it. It's very monophonic. It's difficult to harmonize. Right?
Yes, that's true. That's by nature is because of the maqam system they use, which is basically their scale system.
Maqam?
Maqam,
Okay.
maqam, maqamat. That's the plural.
Mhm.
They use quarter tones. The tuning between the notes changes,
Yeah.
and so the notes within a scale don't necessarily relate to other notes within the same scale,
Okay.
which prevents harmonization to occur like we see in tonal music in Western music. But
So that was your mission?
that was my
to
mission.
harmonize that.
Well, the harmonization of it was part of building the curriculum because we wanted to make sure that Arabic music would not be stuck in this kind of cycle where it would be forced to always mix with other genre.
Of course, yeah, to do fusion, right?
Yes, exactly, all the time, because the more you do that, the more you dilute yourself.
Of course.
And it was kind of
and you lose the tradition, you lose the original sound and everything.
Exactly.
So you did this.
Yes.
So you're a kind of a scholar in music, or yeah, you are.
At that time, I guess I was. So we found out, my research led me to discover writing techniques that would allow for the harmonization of authentic maqam systems. That means we preserve the traditional tuning system of the maqam without having to turn it into Western tonal music. So that keeps it authentic, but allow it to harmonize and play on a larger scale with bigger orchestras. I don't want to get too much into details why that's important, but harmonization allows for bigger ensembles to play, and it allows also for the music to take many more direction on different dimensions, because it's like you're adding 3D to it, and so that has a lot of practical applications.
It's already one item, ladies and gentlemen, harmonization. You heard about that in our mouth with Sonya. We speak about harmonization, how to harmonize your suit, your tie. It's the same subject, and so that was in the past. So there was your mission for the Parisian International Conservatory, the International Conservatory of Paris, to go there to try to open a conservatory in the Middle East, and then to do this work as a scholar, as a musicologist. I don't know how you can say that.
I guess you could say that.
Yes.
It was musicology work for sure, theory work for sure, a lot of research involved.
And then it didn't work in the.
The research worked. Yeah. We have demonstrated it was actually possible to harmonize traditional Arabic maqam systems, but one of the issues is that I got really sick at that time, and for health reasons I had to kind of return to Europe, and that led me to hit the reset button on my life.
Yes.
And following that, I ended up in the United States, in Los Angeles, for 1 year. It led me to study acting for a year. It was just a thing for me to kind of reset everything, rethink my life.
Hence the presence here in Los Angeles.
And this is how I came to Los Angeles.
This is the acting place of the world.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
I found a great school here in Los Angeles, and I decided to study there, get a diploma in acting. I was scoring for film as well at the time. I thought that would be a good complement, and I really needed to kind of reset and rethink everything about my life. And while I was here, I discovered that they have fantastic university programs. UCLA, USC have great music programs, but not much in terms of preparing students to get into them. I mean, there is Colburn in downtown, which is a great school, has a great reputation, but Los Angeles is a big city, and there was nothing like we had in France.
So talking about France, having gone back and forth to France since 2016, people going to the conservatory, that's something that I hear regularly. It's not uncommon to hear that once or twice a week from different types of people. But in America, we don't hear this phrase conservatory. It's not part of our culture to the degree it is in France. So can you just explain, because you had this epiphany when you came to the States to offer this conservatory concept. Can you just explain what that is in France? Like just a definition of conservatory?
You mean the French approach and the French system of conservatory? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, generally speaking, conservatory means to conserve.
Yeah.
And it's conserving the tradition, the musical tradition in this case, but that applies also to ballet and theater. And with this tradition comes a know-how and a rigor and a discipline that is communicated from generation to generation. That's really what the function of a conservatory is. It's not just a music school. It's really a place where students learn about their culture, their heritage, and grow through that and learn also the values that come along with this.
So I'll just throw out an example close to us is Hugo's son, Greg.
Yes.
He decided that he wanted to learn bass guitar. He had some previous experience, but really no degree of expertise to, the level where he would perform. So he said, I'm going to the conservatory and I'm going to learn bass guitar. I'm like, that's nice. And it, it was all supplemented in terms of paying for it. But so that's nice. Here, it's not so much supplemented. You actually pay a decent amount to be able to have that privilege. But once you do that, you're able to move into higher institutions at a much easier rate than if you were to go into a higher institution and try to enter. A conservatory here is more like a way to prepare for a higher institution, where I perceive a conservatory in France as more like honing in on a hobby or self-development, but maybe you see it differently.
Well, in France, the thing is, there are different types of conservatories. There are the municipal conservatories; those are the entry-level conservatories
in the towns, like
Yes.
Greg is going to a
Okay.
This is
municipal
probably
one.
where he's going.
Okay.
And then you have the regional conservatories,
All right.
which require auditioning.
All right.
Yeah.
And the selection becomes quite harsh already.
Ah,
But you
So that's the difference.
you enter quite young, but you need to have already some experience. So within your age range, there are expectation. And I think Juilliard does that. For example, they have a junior exam for 12-year-olds or something,
Wow.
where they have expectations. You have to play a series of pieces at a certain level in order to be accepted, I guess, to enter their academy. And then we have the National Superior. There's one in Paris and one in Lyon. Those are like university level conservatories. That said, we also have private conservatories. The International Conservatory, for example, is a private conservatory.
I got it. And how would you describe your conservatory here in the States?
So we are a private conservatory. We're, in essence, an offshoot of the International Conservatory of Paris, which was founded by Maurice Ravel.
Wow.
By Maurice Ravel himself.
Yeah,
Wow.
himself,
Yeah.
with the help of Paul Dukas and Jacques Ibert, also two great composers at the time. But we are a private institution with the mission to bring, of course, that tradition and that knowledge and know-how here to the United States. We teach in English, not just in French, and we offer that service to people who want something rigorous to prepare for university, mostly for that purpose, because the United States, let's face it, has great schools, great university programs.
Yes.
On the East Coast as well. It's just that Los Angeles, and it's the same situation currently in Las Vegas, which is why we're actually going to open one in Las Vegas soon.
2 locations.
But to stay on Los Angeles, that was the main issue, is not to have the greatest school. You have those. It was to get you in them.
Into the school.
And to get in, you need to audition at a very high level. And I'm not even talking about a scholarship, just to get in. And so that's one of the problems we try to address by coming here to the United States.
So you help the student do the groundwork to gain entry into these higher institutions. And what are some, I know you do piano instruction, guitar instruction.
We do piano, violin, viola, guitar. We have a few string instruments. We have woodwind instruments, saxophone, clarinet, flute. We also do voice,
Yes.
classical and jazz. And for the younger children, we work on a simpler repertoire, things that are not too demanding on the voice, because, before they finish puberty, it's still fragile.
Right.
We need to be very careful with
And
that.
I did read you're doing something with dance now. Is that right?
And we also have ballet at the
ballet,
conservatory, yes.
I have a question, because you see that why the word French is important in the title of your school. It said the French Conservatory of Beverly Hills. That is to say, does it mean that we French have a different approach, a different way of teaching music than the American? I know we don't have the same scoring. You use in America A, B, C, D, E, and we use Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, Do.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose you are teaching the French system right here. But can you explain to us the difference between the American way to approach music and the French way? This is the way you approach music here in America,
Sure.
and how it can be very profitable to the young students, American students, or from elsewhere, because I know you teach online. We're going to get to this in a moment. But what is the difference? Because is there some kind of a French approach to the teaching of the music? How would you define this? Because I understand that the word French here in the USA, and people in my country, they don't know how prestigious it is for many people here. In France, we think that we are losing, that we are not a big country anymore. But when you go abroad, you realize how fantastic is I was about to say the sex appeal. But it is some kind of an appeal, that it's French. You see French everywhere in the supermarket here, even for some stuff who are not French at all.
And your instructors are even French.
Some of them are, yes.
So is there a kind of French way to approach the way of teaching music?
Yes, but it's not universal within France.
Yes.
I guess I could make the parallel between Lacoste and Chiffonelli.
Okay.
They're both French companies.
Yeah.
They don't do exactly the same thing.
Not
even though
exactly.
They're both doing clothes.
Yeah.
So even in France, we have that.
Yeah.
There are differences within institutions and teachers. But one thing that is true in France is that we have a long heritage, at least for the past 200 years, that goes back to Chopin.
Which is not the case in the US.
All the great masters. Yeah. And yes, in the United States, didn't really have that. However, the United States received a lot of influence from all over the place. They have a huge influence from the Russian musicians, English, some French. Nadia Boulanger was in New York for a long time, who was a phenomenal teacher. She taught some of the greatest musicians of the 20th century. So they have a lot of influence from many places. And again, in the United States, they have great programs at very high level. The thing is, I think, and that's just my personal opinion, the Americans are great at optimizing things, and you see that with the food industry, for example. Whereas the French, generally speaking, are good at really going into detail and craftsmanship.
Absolutely, my friend. Right? This is who we are.
Exactly. So this mindset is quite different. And the way we teach music relates to that more than trying to optimize to get as much volume as possible. We try to enable each student as an individual to develop their full potential, whatever that potential is, and enable them to build the character, the strongest character they can build through that education. So there's no shortcuts being taken. Now, it's true that the pedagogy of the French approach is different from the pedagogy of the Russians, for example.
Yes. You told me that the Russians and the people from the East, for example, they go directly, how do you call gamme in English? Scales. So they train their kids like they are like professional sportsmen. Basically, they do scales immediately, like gymnastics, pretty much. And they want to impress immediately and make the people play immediately and impress. Whereas the French, you start at the beginning. It's something which is maybe a little bit more difficult at the beginning and not very rewarding. But at the same time, as we say in the sartorial world, first learn the rules, then break them, and then you are following this philosophy. That is to say, you are really putting the basic rule in place with the student first. And specifically, you told me something I was not aware of, is about the sound. The position of the hand on the sound, and to force the student to find literally the sound and how this piece of music should sound. And I never heard about that before I came to you. And for me, it's a very interesting situation. So it means that you start really from the beginning. It might be a little bit tough for the kids at the beginning because the first few lessons, you're not entertaining them for real. And if they come back to their parents, they can't play immediately Mozart. Of course. But you are putting the basic in place. Is it good what I was saying?
I guess you summed it up pretty well. I mean, so to take the Russians, for example, it's true that at least in the 20th century, because things changed after the communist revolution in their way of approaching many, many things. And I think music was impacted in that way. But it's true that it seems to me that they tend to view piano technique or generally music as a form of gymnastic or athleticism. So I had a discussion with a dancer, a ballet dancer from France, Loïc Noisette. He was visiting the conservatory, and we discussed the difference between the French and the Russian ballet, for example. And he was telling me this is very simple. And that illustrates really the general mentality, the difference in terms of what we value as French artists and what they value as Russians. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it's just a matter of what we value most. And so he was explaining, for example, if a dancer in France wants to lift their leg high up, the French approach is more about trying to work the entire chain of muscle
and
from
to
the
build
core
the muscle
and build it its way. So you're not going to have your leg go up right away. It's a long process to really build it, but then that builds very, very smooth core strength from the beginning because it's strong from the inside. It's a long process, but the end result is so gracious. However, on the Russian side, they want to be efficient. If they want the leg to go up, they'll pull on the leg. And so I think there's a big difference in philosophy there. And so similarly with piano, our results are not impressive right away to the parents because we're working on the minute details. They're only playing 2-3 notes, but each note, we start to phrase them right away. We start working on different articulation. We start to build those core reflexes within 2 fingers, and then we add more fingers to it to shape the hand. And then by focusing on the quality of the tone, we force them to search the touch that is correct to get that sound. And that forces them to have proper position, of course, with some guidance. But the idea is that you cannot obtain the correct sound if you're not applying the correct gesture.
Right.
If you try to attack from the arm and you try to play quiet, it's not going to work. The arm is the wrong tool for the job. Right. And so by forging all of that, you forge the front of the hand first, and then we work backward that way, but always in the musical context. Similarly, when we do technical exercises, we always work them musically, not mechanically all the time.
Okay.
Because that's part of the technique.
So it almost becomes a second nature instead of something mechanical. So
yes, it becomes built in.
Right.
And then no matter what they play, they always have that level of control over their sound.
I got it. I noticed a shift here. We were speaking earlier about getting into higher institutions, which is more training of, I would say, preteen, teenagers, to move that next step into higher training. But now you've moved into children and parents bringing their children to you. So can you give us, what is the youngest child, for example, that's come to seek help there?
Well, the youngest we accept usually are 4. Those are rare, though. We often test them first, make sure they're ready, because if they're not mature enough, and it has nothing to do with intelligence, it's just that, young kids, sometimes they just want to play around. They don't want to sit and focus and follow commands. So if they're not ready to have a one-on-one lesson, we don't start. We'll maybe recommend them to have some musical activities outside in a group class where they're having fun, they're playing with some drums. That's not what we do. There are a lot of places who do that well.
Of course.
But once they're ready to take on one-on-one classes with formal instruction, as soon as they're ready, yes, we will accept them.
So what is the general age in your experience for serious instruction?
5 to 6. Usually
that young.
4 are the exception, but 5 to 6. Sometimes they're not ready until 7. That's also fairly rare, but it happens. Yes,
I understand. So what are some other areas? We talked about getting into higher institutions. We talked about parents bringing their children in. And I'm just going to bring up something you told us earlier about, I think, a 78-year-old gentleman. So can you just tell that story briefly?
It means that you teach to adults too, right?
Yes, we teach. We have a lot of adults. Actually, we have a curriculum designed for them, because the approach in pedagogy with adults is completely different than the pedagogy you will have
with kids,
with children. Adults are a lot more stubborn.
I am.
Yes. They understand concept much easier, but kids, it's kind of a blank slate. You tell them and then they'll just do. Adults question you a lot.
Yeah, of course.
Now, it's good. It's good to question, but sometimes it's not to their benefit, because then they don't necessarily want to apply right away, and then they go, oh, okay, now I get it. So there's a different psychology with them. But they're really fun to work with too, because then adults, when they do it, it's because they want to do it, where kids often it's because the parents want to do it. So it's completely different. Also, adults have advantages that children don't have. So we need to take that into account, because otherwise they get bored. But they also have sometimes difficulties that children don't have. An adult who's over 40 years old has had his hand or her hand work a certain way for their entire life. So the muscles, the way they force, way they move, it's to reshape and to change can take a lot more work.
It's a lot of work.
So it's a very different thing. So that's why we have a specific curriculum for them. Also, psychologically, to go on stage for adults is a different kind of challenge for them. And so we tailor make our programs to really adapt to their specific needs. And beyond that, we really then try to get it to the specific needs of each individual. But generally speaking, there are 2 main lines. Also, adults don't really aim at professional careers. So the goals are slightly different. So we adapt to that as well.
So we're shifting more, maybe you could use the word hobby. With the 80-year-old gentleman now, I know when he started when he was 78, he's playing piano, right?
Yes.
And would you put that in the category of a hobby?
Well, that's a hobby, but it's a passion for sure.
Okay.
Of course, he's not going to become a professional.
Right.
and that's not his goal, but he wants to learn it as well as he can. And I think that's the right way to go about anything. If you want to do something, you might as well do it right. And so that's why he decided to study with us.
I thought of one other thing. We were speaking before we started filming, and we were talking about people who love to sing, and a lot of people think they can sing, but maybe they can't sing. But this is a place where you can really go and find out, right? If you have hope to use your voice and sing. Is that true or false?
Maybe I'm not sure about you singing.
I'm not so sure. I think my speaking voice is much better. But can someone do that to get screened?
Yes, they can come and get screened so we can find out where they are. That doesn't mean they won't be able to sing. Not singing in tune is not necessarily... how do you call that? I don't want to say a death sentence, but it doesn't mean it's over.
Yeah.
Right.
What's more problematic is when they're tone deaf, when they cannot hear or recognize pitch, because then there's not much you can do.
And the rhythm, I suppose, because rhythm is a big issue for people.
It is, but you can still work on it. Just like not being able to keep the right pitch, you can work on it. But if you can't hear anything...
And you can determine whether someone's tone deaf or not,
we can
right?
test that in class for sure.
So by the way, I
That's
noticed that your conservatory, and it's important for the people who are listening to us or who may be interested in coming to your place, that you are, we can say 50-50, giving 50% of the lessons in person, that people walk into the conservatory, and it's only one-to-one lessons at your place, no collective group, okay? Or, since COVID, of course, like many people, you developed an online possibility of teaching the music directly to your conservatory. So, is it 50-50 now? You developed this tool?
About that, we have about 50% of our students online.
And does it work well online? Because everybody always have this impression that when you go to because we talked about adults coming to your place, we talked about kids, etc. But let's go back to the fundamentals. When we talk about a French Conservatory of Music, we don't talk about a place where you can have the hobby of playing a little bit of tambourine with your friend. No, this is serious instruction. We are going to the basic of music and solfège and music theory, etc. So this can be an hobby, but with a high level instruction. So, but we all have this kind of preconceived idea that the fact that not being in the same room as the teacher, you're losing something a little bit. But you told me that in some cases, the contrary, that you have some good experience of young kids or students that online are performing much better than in person.
Yes.
Can you explain us how does it work?
Well, that came, first of all, as a big surprise to us, because we did not expect that. I mean, nobody knew how efficient online lessons could be.
Because you went online because of COVID, right?
COVID forced us, because we didn't really offer that. I mean, some people did online lessons on Skype and Zoom before that, but that was really a small number. But when COVID hit, we had no choice.
Of course.
Our students couldn't just stop and drop out on everything, and we had to continue working. So we found ways to make it work, and we tried to organize the online lessons to make it as organic and comfortable for the students, so the experience would be as close as possible to being next to us.
I've been teaching online for a couple years. I've had a lot of different students, and I think it's a really great way to actually learn an instrument. And with all the technology that we have right now, it works really great.
My students, majority of them are young, so they're used to looking at the camera screen. Some of the interesting benefits were these students that maybe had a harder time focusing in class were somehow completely engaged with the camera, and I thought that was very fascinating. I had students that would have to take a little bit breaks here and there, and all of a sudden they can focus the entire 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, however long their class is, and so that was a fascinating thing for me to witness as a teacher.
Having dealt with COVID and having to switch to online lessons was a big challenge, but it turns out that it worked really well. And surprisingly, some students are even more focused and have been more productive actually online than in-person lessons.
It still feels the same, because you can literally feel their positive energy through the screen.
The lessons were as dynamic in the online experience. I think it was an overall amazing experience, especially musically, because I felt as if I still learned really well.
I don't think the transition was that difficult. I think it went pretty smoothly, Because I mean, at least me personally, I'm okay with like all the video calling and all that kind of thing.
Concerning the online program, I was amazed by what they could accomplish. And I could compare also what we are doing with online at school. And I think for Colomba, doing online, the piano online didn't change anything. And she performed very well, and she continued to progress and to focus on what she was doing.
Now, it turned out a lot of students ended up progressing faster online than in person. And then we started asking ourselves, like, how is that possible?
It's surprising.
And then we saw studies that were done at different universities that I'm not sure how they evaluated those things, but apparently students are 36% more focused online than they are in person. And I believe that because we saw that, and it's not just me. Other instructors noticed that kids are much more focused. They talk less. They're paying more attention to the thing. When you're next to them in the same room, often they look around, they goof around. They were like not necessarily paying attention. You're grabbing their hand, so the hand is doing the thing. They don't need to pay attention as much. Whereas it's online, they have to. Nobody's holding them. And it turned out that a lot of them became more productive. And now we were also concerned about the quality of the detail. Because, especially for the French system, it's all about the color, the detail, the sound. Like, okay, how are we going to address that? Well, it turns out that some softwares allow us to have a level of écoute, of listening that is high enough to hear all the detail in the tone and their phrasing, etc., precisely because it doesn't have as much compression, for example. And so we use that to make sure we can monitor clearly and give them the proper feedback. As a result, and we had our first in-person live exam this year with the jury from Paris in June. A lot of the students who presented themselves at that jury were online.
Oh, wow. We saw the setup, and you were monitoring posture and hand position and, of course, the audio part, but it seemed pretty intricate.
Well, the result was simple. First of all, people couldn't tell who was online, who wasn't.
Okay.
And actually, one of the students...
you mean the jury couldn't tell who studied online or who studied in person?
Neither the jury nor the audience.
That's surprising.
Wow.
And the results were actually the highest score we got this year was a 20 out of 20, which is extremely rare. In France, we don't like to give 20 out of 20 because perfection does not exist kind of thing. Yeah. But it was so good that we had to.
Alors, la gavotte.
So the gavotte.
Très bon tempo.
Very good tempo.
Juste très sensible,
very
très musical.
Sensible and sensitive
Jolie
play.
nuance.
Very musical, beautiful nuances.
Bravo, bel examen.
Bravo, beautiful exam.
Alors, dans la petite main, magnifique
the petite main, magnificent phrasing.
Sensible.
Very sensible.
Quelle belle prestation.
What a wonderful
bravo,
prestation.
Bravo, 20 sur 20.
You obtained 20 out of 20.
Yeah, 20 on 20, because in this country you use A, B, C, D.
That's right.
Okay. In France, we still use the mark out of 20. So you have to have 10 to have the
average. Yeah,
the average. And
Even a
then
16 out of 20 is good.
16 out of 20 in French high school is a mention very good.
Yes.
18 out of 20 is excellent, and then it's very rare to go to 20 out of 20. And I suppose in conservatory exams, it's very rare too.
Yeah, our system is similar. 16 out of 20 is actually mention bien, mention good.
Yes.
Above 18, it's très bien, very good.
Okay.
And 20, of course, is perfect. But we never give it. And that girl had 20 out of 20, and she had been online not just because we went to COVID. She started online because she's starting during COVID. She had never played the piano before.
Wow.
So I forged her hand entirely online without ever manipulating her hand.
Wow.
Perfect position, perfect tone, because we were aiming at getting that sound out from day one. And it showed on stage, and everybody was blown away. So it really, really works well.
When you speak about the jury, just to make it clear for the people who are listening and watching, is that so you have an affiliation, right, with the International Conservatory of Music of Paris, right? Yes. So you're affiliated with them. You explained that you were sending a mission in the Middle East to open new conservatory, and then you opened this one, and then you are opening another one in Las Vegas. Plus, you have several other projects. But the point is that you said that the jury was French. So does it mean that each time you go to an exam for your students, the jury is from the French International Conservatory of Paris? Is that correct? Did I understand well?
Yes. Every year, I mean, except for those years in COVID, but then we had the online. But normally, we have judges from the International Conservatory of Paris travel to the United States every year to judge our students.
Yes.
So how many, for example?
Well, last year we had 3 of them from Paris, from the conservatory, and we had 2 guest judges here, and I was, of course, at the table. And so they come for the live event, but also the online students who live too far, because we have students abroad in different states, they get the option to also record their exam in class, because it's a one take only, don't cheat, right? Online, in class, with the teacher witnessing it, and then those files are uploaded to us, so we can present that to the jury. They get judged just like the live students. The average of the scores come out, and they receive their diplomas the same way. But the certification are given directly from the conservatory in Paris.
So it means that,
is it a report card? Is that sort of like a report card, or?
Yes, it's a small diploma for the level they attempted. And it comes with a comment card of the comments of the judges themselves, what they had to say about it with your score. And so that allows us also to keep track of their progress. And as they build their university file, well, if you did the conservatory for 10 years and you were certified by the conservatory in Paris for 10 years with a great score, and you see that you're a serious student and you achieved quite exceptional things, well, that weighs for your
It means that if I take lessons with you and class with you, and then I go through the different exam, my diploma will be of the French Conservatory of Beverly Hills, with also the French International Conservatory of Paris.
It will be from the International Conservatory of Paris.
Of Paris?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We don't have our own diplomas here yet.
Oh, yeah.
We deliver theirs. They deliver their own.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So
this is cool. Yeah. And so it's very interesting, because I didn't get this at the first time. I thought you had some kind of collaboration. No, you are delivering the diplomas of the Conservatory of Paris. So it means that even if I'm not here in Beverly Hills, ladies and gentlemen, if you are from, I don't know, Oregon,
Idaho.
What?
Even in Idaho.
In Idaho, yeah. What did you say, Idaho?
I don't know, it just came to me.
Yeah. If you're in Georgia, we like Georgia, or if you are, I don't know, Massachusetts, whatever, in different states, you can still study at your place and receive the diploma. But if you're from the UK or from France or from Morocco or you can still attend the classes?
Yes, as well. Now, the only thing is,
you have to speak English.
Well, if you're from the UK, that won't be a problem.
That's for sure.
And if you are from the UK and you want to study the French way, you have 2 choices. Either you study with a teacher in France or with us. The thing is, we speak English. I'm sorry, France, but sometimes they don't in France necessarily.
Well,
That could be a good alternative for them. But we had students in France who studied with us.
Yes.
Just simply because they liked the teachers that we had. And we had a student in Morocco who studied voice with us. Now we have students in Canada, on the East Coast, and different states here.
Well,
so.
you can speak French as well because you have so many French-speaking teachers.
Yeah. And by the way, I think you told me just before, you have an announcement. You are hiring, right? You're looking for teachers.
Yes, we're looking for teachers from France to come in and bring their expertise here to the United States.
Yes.
And to help us build the program because I guess luckily for us, we're full. For the piano program, it's completely packed. We have to refuse people, so we need more instructors to be able to accept more students. But hopefully, we'll find a new, very competent people to join our team, and we'll be able to accept more piano students.
Well,
they are full, ladies and gentlemen. But listen, I'm pretty sure if you give a call to Skander or send him an email to say, "I'm coming from Hugo and Sonya." Maybe you can find, you can squeeze me into different, no, I'm just joking. But it means that you are expanding. Literally.
Yeah, we're expanding, yes.
Sorry, darling.
Oh, no, it's something else while we're putting feelers out there for instructors.
Yes.
I understand you're also looking for venues for your recitals because you're growing so much, both in Beverly Hills and eventually in Nevada. I don't know where. In Las Vegas, yes.
Yeah.
So maybe someone out there will have a
but
suggestion for
so
you.
if you are a French teacher of music and you have good experience, you feel that you can have the level to be a teacher, and you want to experiment the American life in LA because you are looking for teachers who come and set up here, right?
Yes. And actually, we're looking mostly for teachers who have a French lineage in their teacher's history. So they don't have to be French necessarily.
Yes.
But they have to have some kind of lineage with France. So for instance, one of our teachers, Dr. Popova, she's our violin instructor. She studied under Guillaume Sutre, who's a very famous French violin teacher. He was himself a student of Gérard Poulet, who's a very, very famous violinist in France. And so she's from Bulgaria. She does not speak French, but she studied the French.
She got the lineage of the French tradition.
And she's from the lineage. Another instructor we have at the conservatory, Mr. Jahanian, he studied also with an instructor in the United States who was a disciple of Nadia Boulanger. So he has a lineage directly from there. Of course, I studied in France, so I have my lineage there.
Speaking about lineage, you told me something that really was jaw-dropping for me yesterday. You said, my lineage as a musician goes all the way to Frédéric Chopin.
Yes.
Can you explain this to us with names?
Sure.
I want to have names
to
make sure it's right, because this is something very important. We are talking on one of the greatest musicians of all time. Well, some people say, the Polish people, they say he's from Poland, and we say he's from France. Well, he was mainly in France, but can you tell us how can you go up to Frédéric Chopin?
Well, this is simple. Like most of us who studied obviously had multiple masters. So we have multiple branches in our lineages, and sometimes they crisscross. But my main master, my musical mother, I call her Colette Lansens, who's the vice president of the International Conservatory of Paris currently. Her main teacher at the Conservatoire in Paris when she was a student was Yvonne Lefébure. Herself, Yvonne Lefébure, had Alfred Cortot as master. Alfred Cortot's master was Émile Descombes, and Émile Descombes was the pupil. I think he was the last student of Chopin.
Okay.
And so there's a direct lineage: Chopin, Émile Descombes, Alfred Cortot, Yvonne Lefébure, Colette Lansens, and myself, and all the other students, of course, who studied with her.
That's really cool, I must admit. Yeah, that's a real lineage about Frédéric Chopin. Speaking about Frédéric Chopin, and because we speak about French classical music since almost, 30 minutes, maybe more. And we didn't even give a name to the people who are listening, because I guess we're on a sartorial channel, so not everybody is totally educated in classical music. And we're going to give you a playlist to get to do your first steps in the classical music. Skander prepared a short list of what you should start with to be interested in classical music. But still, let's go and give a few names. We say French Conservatory, French music, French masters. Who are there? I give the first name.
Okay.
Claude Debussy.
Okay.
So I love Claude Debussy. And for a very specific reason. He's not well, it's not this showing off music. It's not this very martial. It's not Wagner, you know.
No,
Or it's not, you know.
not.
And in Debussy, he has this kind of a. For me, Debussy is to the classical music what the Impressionists, the French, are to painting. Debussy is triggering impressions, and in my mind, I love it because it leaves me a space to contribute in my head. You know, it's some kind of music that is pushing you to a kind of an introspection. And, you know, and I really love that. So you explained to me that Debussy has he bring on not maybe a revolution, but he was kind of challenging the classical way of interpreting music. Is that right?
Oh, he certainly challenged all the codes that we
Yes.
had at the time. His music was unique. Some of his teachers disliked the liberties he took.
Yeah, he was a free guy.
Yes,
Yeah.
but also he sometimes he was missing class, so that didn't help with his reputation.
Of course.
When he won the Prix de Rome to go study at la Villa Médicis for composition,
Yeah.
he didn't even complete it. It's a 3-year program. He left after 2 years. He was taking vacations all the time to go see his mistress or something.
He was a bit flaky.
Yeah. A very, very free spirit, but you can hear it in his music. And nonetheless, he was one of the greatest musicians of the late 19th, early 20th century.
Okay. Claude Debussy, ladies and gentlemen, fantastic music. Give another name.
Oh, but don't forget, one of the women that he was with for, I think, 6 or 7 years, her dad was a tailor. So maybe he dresses better
You mean the
than the other
dad
ones.
of
His I don't know if she was his
first
wife or girlfriend, but he was with her for 6 or 7 years.
Oh,
And
wow. But we saw pictures. We're going to put
so
a
if he
picture or
dresses
two of
well, maybe this is why.
Maybe this is why,
Debussy
yeah.
was
That's
quite
right.
known to be well dressed, and as well as the founder of the international.
Maurice Ravel,
Maurice Ravel.
yes, very elegant gentleman for sure.
But it means that Maurice Ravel, everybody knows the Bolero, but there's other tracks that can be interesting to listen to. But Maurice Ravel, we're speaking about one of the icon of French music, is the founder of the International Conservatory of Paris. So
Yes.
that's a direct connection.
So he's our grandfather in a way, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
This is great. So
Him with
add a few other names.
Sure. Well, there was Paul Dukas and Jacques Ibert who founded the conservatory with him.
Yes.
For French music, I mean, in the 19th century, you had Chopin, of course.
Of course,
You had
Frédéric Chopin.
Camille Saint-Saëns, Berlioz,
Hector Berlioz.
Berlioz,
Yeah.
Gabriel Fauré.
Yes.
So, I mean, quite a big variety. Also, Franz Liszt lived in Paris.
Oh, yeah?
It had a huge influence there.
Oh, I didn't
Yes.
know that. But for
Yeah.
me, it's a different kind of music. There's a lot of
Virtuoso.
there's a lot of notes in a very limited time, and this is why I prefer Debussy and even Chopin in the Nocturne, who is much more relaxed and allows you to participate. So let's go into the list because you are beginners in classical music, and even if you are not beginners, Skander prepared a playlist, so that you can maybe taste a little bit. And we invite you to taste this because even me, I'm not very educated in classical music, but more and more I'm interested in it because I don't know, it's maybe, well, to be honest with you, when I'm dressed like that, I'm more inclined to listen to Debussy or Chopin than to heavy metal. No, but I don't know, I'm not kidding. It's something like, almost I'm looking for distinction in the music I want to hear. I'm looking for this kind of a spiritual uplifting that you can find in Debussy, in Chopin, Nocturne de Chopin, Opus 20 for me is a magical piece of music. And it's something which is quite, how can I say that? It goes well with our passion for nice suits and nice tie, with our passion for elegance and our passion for beauty. And I think it goes very well together. And I just realized now that no wonder why we have all these musicians with us,
It's been surprising.
Yes, we have big names. I know you may not know them in the USA, but we have Michel d'Alberto, for example, is a very important, we say concertist?
Concert pianist.
pianist.
Concert pianist. Concert pianist.
Concert pianist. We say concertiste in French. I'm sorry. We have his student, Jean-Paul Gasparian. We're going to show a few extracts of Jean-Paul Gasparian, and you will see. I think it's a great musician.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That guy is phenomenal. I discovered him recently.
Yes.
Oh my God, you have to listen to him.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, and
it's
we're going to
phenomenal
put a
student.
few extracts. Let's look at an extract of Jean-Paul Gasparian now. is out of this world.
Also, the amount of work he must have put into dedication, the sacrifice he had to make to get to that level. Because you can have all the talent in the world.
Yeah,
talent doesn't make your fingers move like that.
Of course,
you're going to have to practice and work that, just like a professional athlete. So he must have had sacrificed a lot.
Of course,
dedicated his life to this to reach that level of excellence. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's a good friend of us, and we say hello to you, Jean-Paul, and we thank you to give us the authorization and the right to use your videos. And we are really, maybe we can organize something with you in LA.
Oh,
right?
You
would be happy to have him.
That would be wonderful to have him. Yeah, for sure.
Of course. So now let's go to the playlist. So I'm here. I don't know much about classic music. I even have some kind of preconceived ideas. It's boring. It's a little bit for the snobs and blah blah blah.
Sometimes,
it is. It can be very boring, actually. Okay, I'm just starting my classical music journey.
Yeah,
and give me like a few pieces of music that you really, really advise people to listen to.
Well,
as an introduction,
I think
this is a difficult question. I know.
Yeah, it's a difficult question because the repertoire is so vast. Yeah. But let's try to give something that is not like a cliche or something that everybody knows.
Yes,
I mean,
not the Four Seasons of Vivaldi.
Exactly, that's
right. So, but let's take Debussy for example. Rêverie.
Dreaming.
Yeah.
Say reverie? Reverie means dreaming.
Yes.
In French.
I highly recommend that one.
Yeah.
From Debussy. It's very accessible and gorgeous, and I think it encapsulates the essence of it, especially for a beginner listener. Chopin, all the nocturnes. Listen to all of them. That's very accessible as well, and it's just gorgeous. You're going to love it.
Yeah, I love it personally. My favorite is the Nocturne Opus 20, which is you know this piece of music that I adore it, and because I don't know. I think the genius of Chopin is all inside this piece of music. It's very ethereal, and at the same time it becomes very emotional, and it's a language, literally.
Yeah. It allows your mind to travel.
Exactly, and the piano is speaking literally to you. And then, so Chopin, the Nocturnes, I agree with you,
for
100%.
Sure. If we Camille Saëns, I think the Carnaval des Animaux, how would we call that in English? The Carnival of
the
Animals.
Carnival, the Animals Carnival.
Yeah. That's a very colorful work. I highly recommend that, especially if you have children, you want to initiate them to classical music. I play that to my son a lot.
It's It's an alternative to Prokofiev, I suppose.
Yes.
Pierre et le Loup, Peter and the Wolf, you say that?
That's also great, by the way.
Yes.
But for French music, Camille Saint-Saëns, I would highly recommend the Carnaval des Animaux.
Say the title again?
Carnaval des Animaux.
The Animal Carnival.
Carnival of Animals.
Yes.
Or, I'm not sure how they call it in English.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of Mozart, I suppose?
Mozart, I guess one of the easiest concerto. Easiest. It's a great concerto. It's one of my favorite. It's the Concerto Number 20 by Mozart.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the Requiem, that's a bit heavy, but this is gorgeous work. You have to listen to it. But be in a fairly good mood because you're going to get depressed otherwise.
Is it depressing music a little bit?
No, it's not really depressing, but it's heavy. It's heavy. I personally enjoy that. I used to lock myself up in my room and listen to it like for hours and hours and hours when I was 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
I was such a fan of that piece. Gorgeous work. And then maybe a little bit of Bach would be nice because a lot of foundations there.
Which one of Bach, for example?
So Bach, maybe on the lighter side, the Brandenburg concertos. Those are great. And
because Toccata and Fugue is a little bit more complicated.
Well, the Toccata and Fugue, the one that is famous, the vampire thing.
Okay,
all right.
The Fugue.
The other things, it's just maybe not as accessible.
Okay.
Maybe it's as you level up a little bit with your music education, you start to really appreciate that. I mean, the Bach partitas are absolutely gorgeous, all of them. It's a bit more complex, but for sure, the Brandenburg concertos are very accessible and fun pieces to listen to.
Okay.
The Goldberg variations, but that's more to go to bed. But one of my personal favorites are the Mass in B minor.
Okay.
This is something that. Something spiritual about it, definitely. I mean, it's a mass, of course, but there's something to find about this piece. Highly recommend it. Yeah.
Johann Sebastian Bach was very inspired by the scripture, and he had a difficult life. I don't know all the story of his life, but it's kind of a dramatic life. He had a lot of trials, a lot of death around him.
If you like to read
his family,
biographies,
right? And I think he lost sight at one moment.
Did, yes.
It was a catastrophe.
That's a
very
biography
difficult
to read if you. If you're into
but
that.
he always keep the show on the road, to say the least, and he did a great job. So that's a beautiful list. We're going to put the list on the description of the video, but if you want to step in the world of classical music, Mr. Skander Ladjimi, the head and founder of the French Conservatory of Beverly Hills, gave you his personal playlist, and I can tell you he's a reliable source for that.
I just wanted to paint a picture of what life's like for you at the conservatory. From what I understand, if I'm a student, I would go there at least once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And the fees are around 100 something an hour, depending on if you're doing online or in person. So you're going minimum 4 times in a month, and maybe more if you're studying. 4 to
5, depending on the calendar.
And if you want to throw in a theory class or an academic
yeah.
class, you can.
Yes.
Right? And you can commit to any amount of time as long as you give 2 weeks notice. Is that right? Did I get it right?
You 2 weeks notice
stop.
before the next month. Yeah,
Right.
if you decide to stop the next month, we just ask for a 2 week notice before the beginning of the month.
So it's very
all.
flexible.
Yes.
And if you want to sign up for a quarter system, you can, right? For 3 months at a
Yes.
time.
There
Is
are
that
there
right?
are options to do that as well.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And so I'm just struggling with how this word conservatory is so common in France. Do you perceive it to be growing in the United States? Or do you think you're more like a founder for this concept of going to conservatory?
Or pioneer.
Or a pioneer is a better word.
This is a difficult question to ask because I don't have enough du recul, enough data, I guess, to make an analysis on this. But what I can tell you is this: we grew extremely fast. Very quickly, we developed before COVID. We had a branch in San Diego and then Pasadena and Los Feliz, and then we went up to Berkeley, and then COVID hit. All of those turned into online, but the hunger for that kind of education, which is rigorous, it's not easy. It's I don't want to scare anyone, but it's a little bit of pain, a lot of effort before you get any kind of reward. But this is also what.
This is universal.
This is the value of the craft as well. You have to go through that effort before you get the reward. And that makes it that much sweeter, I think.
And if I remember correctly, you said the one thing that motivates you more than anything else is what you're trying to describe now. I think, and Hugo could say the same thing about rugby. I could say the same thing about people in my family who've gone through the wrestling culture. Can you define what is that thing that you get, that you acquire from going to conservatory, say for a few years? What do you acquire as a human?
Beside the music,
yes,
the music,
the internal qualities
and the values that you are exposed to. I would say perseverance, I suppose.
Well, there are many general skills, values that you do have to develop and acquire in order to become a good musician, and those things translate well into real life in general. And one of those are perseverance. You have to persevere to not give up when you face difficulties. And obviously, because otherwise you'll never get anywhere, especially with music, it is very difficult. You have to learn to focus. You have to learn to become self-disciplined. You have to learn to listen. That is a very important
That's a big skill.
You have to learn to take responsibility. You have to learn to willfully face a challenge and conquer it and overcome it. For example, getting on stage. That's a big one. And then you have to also develop ways of thinking, because music is is abstract. It's a language, but it's an abstract language. And so you have to develop at the same time mathematical, rational, and structured thinking, but also abstract thinking on multiple dimensions and on multiple levels of resolutions of analysis. When you look at a piece of music, all of those different universes and world exist within a piece. That's something that is forced, so to speak, upon you for you to really make sense of what you're performing. And I think this is an amazing gift to anyone who goes through that process. Again, it requires a lot of effort, but the reward
it's going to stay with you
so
throughout
immense
your life, right?
Throughout your life. Yes. And I mean, there's no surprise why so many surgeons and high-level lawyers and very successful people studied music when they were children at a high level. They didn't become professionals, but they studied it. So
it's a good school of life.
Definitely.
May I add a value that you didn't speak about? This humility, maybe?
Humility. Well, obviously, I mean, you're dealing with the greatest minds and geniuses that have ever existed.
Yes.
And you're a humble little cell trying to make sense of this. Yeah. It is definitely a humbling experience. But beyond that, also the fact that you realize that you can almost feel physically where the limitations are and how you can overcome them. It's funny, one of my students were telling me that he was almost feeling the myelination process to occur in his mind and in his body as he was developing his piano. He's like, it's amazing. It's like you can really feel where your limit is and as you go over it. And this is very humbling because you can be the smartest person in the world. Doesn't allow you to play the piano necessarily.
Right.
You're going to have to put the grind and put the work in. So in that sense, it's also very humbling. And then when you present yourself yourself like this on stage, it's like you're naked in a way.
Of course.
It's just you.
Yeah, it's better to wear a shirt and tie than to be naked.
Yes, it is better.
That's another story. Now, speaking about presence on stage, I know that you are teaching to your students what we could say the stage etiquette. Is that the right way to put it?
Stage etiquette.
Stage etiquette.
Yeah, I think so.
And there's some rules, right, that you are teaching your students from the onset, very early in the process, to help them how to present themselves to the public. Can you give us
I like this question because even for those of us who need to get up on stage and make a speech, or for those of us who are in meetings and have to speak to a group, or any time when we have to rise to the occasion and perform solo, this is going to be very helpful, I think.
You're going to explain it, and we're going to show some pictures that we're going to shoot probably later today or tomorrow morning to just show to the people how it works. But explain to us that the first thing that you taught us yesterday night is that when you go on stage and you have to stand up and you have to move your shoulders backwards. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you told me that moving backwards creates serotonin. So I can tell Sonya since
yes, I'm already. Yes.
And since yesterday night, I'm working like that the whole day because I'm looking for serotonin.
Well, a doctor once told me turn your hands out. It's that simple. Okay, start from the beginning.
Well, it's correct. Essentially.
Give us some good serotonin.
We discovered that as musicians, we didn't really know what the mechanisms were, but science seemed to have confirmed that when you adopt a dominant position, you tend to produce more serotonin, and that helps balance out the stress. Because when you have stage fright, you have a ton of cortisol building up.
I didn't hear you. What?
Cortisol and adrenaline are building up,
and
serotonin is kind of helping you calm down and balancing those things out. Because you're kind of trying to trick your body into believing that, no, you're safe, everything is okay, which is true because there's no tiger trying to eat you.
Exactly.
But, so you have to adopt a physical posture of dominance by pushing your shoulders back, keeping your head high, stand upright. That's one of the first steps as you are waiting to stay focused. The other impact of this is not just on you, although indirectly it would be on you, is when you walk on stage. If you walk adopting a dominant posture,
the public will feel it.
The public will feel it, but not only that, it will be reassuring because you're showing them you're in charge. You got this. Like, it's going to go well.
Don't worry. It's
because
all okay.
The truth is this, many students, when they get on stage, they're afraid that people are going to judge them.
Of course.
That people are going to, oh, look, he or she made a mistake.
It's true for every activities of life when you have to deal with public.
But the truth is, people want you to succeed. They don't want to blame you. They're here to support you.
So you're not only nervous, they could be nervous too.
Yes, of course. And they are your ally.
Right.
They're not against you.
No, they're with you. They want it to go well. They want to enjoy this show, right? Yeah. They're about to see. So when you show them that posture, you show them confidence that calms them down because they know it's going to go well. Now, here's the interesting thing. Because of that empathy that we all have with each other, when the audience calms down and feels calm and relaxed and they know you are in charge, guess what happens? You don't feel their stress, so you calm down. However, if you don't have a strong, confident posture when you walk on stage, you're all like leaning forward and you're crossing your hands in front of you. Your shoulders are down, your head is down. You look very submissive or scared, like a dog with their tail between their legs and looking down. The audience is worried now because why? What's going on?
And it becomes reciprocal again in a negative way.
Exactly, because now you feel the audience being stressed. That stresses you out even more. So it's like this kind of cycle that you have feedback loop that is happening. And so the posture is important for those two reasons. How it makes you feel and how it makes the audience resonate with you. So that's the first step. Now, as we walk on stage, we get to the piano. Well, let's take the piano as an example because that's my field specifically. It's important to find a position on the stage that would allow you to elegantly sit on your chair after you bow. So for instance, let's take the corner of the keyboard there. You can use that as a reference point. It's not too far, so you don't have to walk back. And that allows you to bow cleanly, properly in front of people. It's clear. And then just step into your chair. That way you don't have to turn around and show your back.
And show your butt, of course.
You don't want to show your back to the audience.
So you never turn your back to the audience.
No, never.
He said your back, I said your butt. But
Yes, same thing.
So
Same thing.
the student or the performer chooses a focal point, which happens to be the edge of the piano.
In this case, it's the most practical place. Now,
Right.
also don't forget, when you bow to an audience, you can do the experiment at home. Close your feet. I always say to the students, please close your feet. Don't keep them wide open. It just looks very weird. Close your feet and then step in. But now, this is just getting on stage. There are a few things that are completely unnoticeable by the audience that a musician has to do. And I think a speaker should do as well before they start speaking or performing. Once you sit, of course, you should make sure your chair is adjusted.
Yeah, of course.
But most of the time it is, unless you're playing with a bunch of other people that are settled.
Most of the time it is adjusted for you beforehand.
So if it's not adjusted, of course, make the adjustment, stay elegant, face the audience if you have to lift yourself up a little bit to adjust the chair on the side. And eventually you can also step outside, go around the chair the other way and adjust it, push it forward or backward, and then go back. And never turn your back, of course, on the audience.
And don't drag your seat.
And
while
don't
you're
drag
sitting
your
there.
seat,
Okay.
exactly.
Yes, okay.
Be as light as possible when you do that. Now, you are seated, adjusted, ready to go. Still 2 more steps to do. The first step is to, not let the stress force you to jump in too quickly, because, your heart is racing a little bit and that makes us want to just, urgently jump in and get rid of it. And we're not really in control. To break that, take a deep breath and place your hands in the right position, of course. So when you're ready to start, you're not hitting the wrong notes, you're already placed properly. So do that at the same motion. So it's one gesture and you place. Once that is in place, you just brought a lot of oxygen in your brain.
Yes.
Great. You calm down a little bit and you're in control because you didn't let your stress force you to start. Now you're in control. Now it's time to do the last step. The last step is mentally
the tempo.
Decide what your tempo is.
Of
exactly.
course. I'm a drummer.
So you know, sync yourself to that tempo, control that speed. Because you, again, with stress, you might start too fast. If you start too fast, you're going to panic. If you panic, you're going to crash. And then it's a disaster. So set your tempo in your head. Sync yourself to it clearly. And then inside that tempo, hear your phrase, your first sentence, musical sentence. Hear the tone, the sound you want. Sing it in your head at that tempo. And now you're ready to go. Boom.
Oh, so you're not rushing. Like
No.
you're sitting there,
So
you're
it
waiting
means
for the right time.
take your time,
right?
basically.
Waiting for the
It
right
can
time.
take 30 seconds, 1 minute. It
It's
doesn't take
okay
that
to
long.
be quiet.
Yes,
Yeah.
just be there. People are going to be just waiting. Nobody's in a hurry for you to start.
Wow.
They'll wait.
I'm very interested in that because, darling, we've been speaking about a lot of different subjects over the years. And
Right.
this idea of taking your time is redundant. It's coming
Nice, you're right.
constantly. Why? Because we live in a civilization, people that don't take their time anymore. And they have this misconception that life is an emergency. That is to say, if you don't do things fast, you will never do them. It is not true, ladies and gentlemen.
But what if you make a mistake while you're playing?
Well, you continue.
You continue.
You don't acknowledge it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Don't make any weird faces. Don't look at the audience like, oops. Don't say anything. Continue. Try not to stop. Recover. Because the truth is, even professionals, I'm sure you can ask Jean-Paul Gasparian
Oui.
or Michel
They
D'Alberto.
made mistakes in
You
their
make
life.
mistakes
Of
even
course.
as a professional. The question is not if. It's will people notice? How do you recover? Because sometimes, you know what? It's very admirable to see someone completely mess up
Yes.
and recover like that.
Ah,
That is well done. This is impressive. So don't necessarily use that as, oh my God, I messed up. People are going to judge me. It's the end. My life is over. No. Recover. Try to give a performance that is steady. Do not interrupt it or ruin it for people, because chances are also they didn't notice. Unless you point it out, most of the time people don't notice. And if they did recover from it, you might actually be even more respected for recovering from an accident, you know?
Right.
So yes.
And then you have your exit.
And then you have your exit. So on the exit, likewise, take your time. Do not stand up before your hands are done playing. finish your piece. If there are rests at the end of the piece, stay suspended because it's part of the music. Even though there's no noise, no sound, it's still part of your music. Stay in it. Then once you remove your hands and put them on your lap, then that's a signal they can clap. You can stand up, bow, make sure you close your feet. Take your time. Have a little bit of a glow in your face. Don't show them that you were worried in case you were not happy with your performance. Don't show people you're mad at yourself because they probably don't perceive it the way you did and they don't know. Maybe it was just fine to them. But if you send them a signal that,
of course,
you were actually mad, what happened? Or maybe it wasn't that good. And then the whole perception of the performance is distorted. So have a small glow, a small smile. Be just grateful that people listen to you. And that's also one part of the lesson of humility. Be grateful. And then go back out of the stage, walk gently. Don't walk in a defeated position again. Keep that dominant position with your shoulders back, with the glow on your face, and then you will have left a great impression on your audience.
You had a clinic, ladies and gentlemen, on the stage etiquette for classical
music. And you notice all three of us are getting there.
All of a sudden, we are all like that because I'm producing a lot of serotonin right now. And believe me, I think I'm going to walk like that all day long now. I'm sorry. Thank you. This is pure wisdom. Actually, this is like a gem that we discovered this world. And thank you, Skander, for all these brilliant explanation about that. I have a last question for you.
Yes.
You know, with Sonya, we are totally, how do you say that, addict to craftsmanship. We are passionate with craftsmanship. Everywhere we look, we try to find where is the craftsmanship, where are the best makers. And so we spoke about piano. It's not a universe I know very well, but it's a universe I know a little bit. And I knew for me that the highest of the gold standard were Steinway and Son on one hand and Bösendorfer on another hand, which is, well, I mean, two very famous piano crafter. And but you told me, oh, well, Hugo, if you really want to go to the craftsmanship of piano, there's another brand which is called Fazioli. It sounds immediately like Fazioli.
A lot of watch connoisseurs maybe.
Yeah, it's like it's Italian, of course. And I didn't know this brand. Can you give us a few words about this one? Because you said to me Fazioli is the top of piano in the world.
Of course, it's a personal preference. I mean, Steinway and Bösendorfer are great pianos, of course, but it's true that Faziolis, maybe I'm biased because I grew up on them. My piano teacher, Colette Lancens, has two in her home. Actually, she has a recital hall in her home with two Faziolis on stage. And so I grew up on them. But here, my friend Pierre Julia is the owner of the Fazioli dealer
here in Los
Angeles. And we used to do our recitals there, and our students got the chance to play on those instruments.
Oh, wow. Your students were allowed to play on the Fazioli?
Yeah, because that was kind of the point where you do all this work, and we do such detailed work with our craft at school, the way we approach it.
So playing a Fazioli when you're a kid or a student is like driving a Bentley while taking a driving lesson.
Pretty much, yes. But then they could really apply because those instruments are so responsive and so clear, and everything sounds so beautiful. They really make the instruments sing.
And where are they crafted?
So they're made in Italy, and they're pretty much made by hand.
Fully by hand.
I believe so. Now, again, Pierre would know more about this than I do, but I think it's the last manufacturers of piano that is still mostly by hand or almost fully by hand. Other companies use a lot more machinery. Also, they have a very small volume of production. I think their maximum production annually is about 180 pianos. I may be wrong on this, but it's around within that range.
It's not thousands like
And how long does it take to craft one, for example?
I think it takes them at least 6 months. And that's for a basic one. If you want,
and how much would it cost to buy one?
It's expensive.
I think a basic,
it has a value. It's not cost. It's a value.
Well, what's the value? Yes, the value of a 9-footer, I think, is about $180,000.
Oh, that's
and that's without any kind of customization. Now, then the sky's the limit. I know they had the Luminal, I think, was the name. It was a very special, one of a kind Fazioli piano that looked like a boat. Herbie Hancock played on it.
Wow!
And this thing was, I think, $500,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but a basic, if there's such a thing, Fazioli, a 9-footer concert grand is about $180,000. Yes.
Okay. So this is the top of the line.
Yeah,
right?
it's very.
But it's bizarre. I never heard about them. They're very discreet people, right? Or it's just for connoisseurs.
C'est l'artisanat. It's artisan work. You know, it's a small volume artisan specialty.
And Italian.
And
It's
Italian.
like a
Italian,
Dufour,
they like to-
a Dufour watch or a Laurent.
Yeah,
Fauré
just
or-
like Philippe Dufour, it's independent watchmaker.
Right.
They are the same. They're a little bit, but I hope these people. So Fazioli, ladies and gentlemen, we decided to quote their name because we are always in the search with Sonya, with the best craftsman in their field, and obviously I'm going to take a look at Fazioli, and it's a beautiful thing. You have a last thing?
I have
to
a
say?
last question.
Yes.
Okay, say I do live in Idaho. How do I sign up for your class?
Well, it's very
What a class.
simple. If you live in an area, for example, where you don't
What do you mean,
necessarily-
Idaho? You're obsessed
I don't
with
know.
Idaho?
It just came to me. So.
if you live far from the conservatory, or if you live in an area where you don't have necessarily access to that type of education, wherever it might be in the world, you just have to go on our website, FrenchConservatory.com. Go to our contact section. You can contact us directly there and ask us questions. You can also give us a call, but usually email is the best way to reach us. And then we'll see what your situation is, what your goals are, what you're looking for. We'll set up a free trial lesson for you, so you can also see if that's what you were looking for.
Yes.
And that will allow us to evaluate you as well, to build a program tailor-made to you, no pun intended, and help you achieve those goals as quickly and promptly as possible.
And we've seen your location in Beverly Hills. Great. And you're going to be opening a location in Las Vegas next year?
We're working on it. We're hoping to be able to open it in September and really launch the program then. Maybe a little bit sooner, but September 2023, for sure, that's what we're aiming for Las Vegas. Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So we have,
Welcome.
I'm French. Sonya is becoming French. I don't know if you notice, ladies and gentlemen, this is the third last question. Because the last question is always triggering another question and another question. I want to finish this interview, which was great. It was a very interesting, and we love with Sonya to step in new worlds like that and see that beauty is everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the beauty of the gesture of playing the piano, the beauty of the music, of course, but behind that, there's always some kind of I don't know, is ever a universal thing that is at work that, I mean, I think that the French academician called François Cheng says something very important. He says, beauty makes us better. It makes us better human beings. And beauty is everywhere. We just have to relearn the capacity of opening our eyes and look around and take the time. What I take away from this discussion is a lot of things, humility, responsibility, but take your time. Don't try to burn the traffic light of your life. You have time. Life is not an emergency. And it's the same in the sartorial world, it's the same in the musical world, it's the same in the cooking world, it's the same in the cigar world, in the whatever, the wine world. Take your time. Time is your best ally. And we have this misconception, ladies and gentlemen, in this world, that as if life is an emergency. Life is not an emergency. On the contrary, you miss so many things. And I'm going to turn 60 next year. So now I can start to speak as an old guy, you know, and share with you my experience. And I noticed that the more with Sonya, we practice the art sometimes, well, rarely, but we try to practice the art of doing nothing. That is to say, practice the art with some kind, give yourself some time to think, to understand, to look, and you will find beauty everywhere. And when you take your time and you really become not an expert, but you will become knowledgeable in every subject that you tackle in life, then life becomes more and more interesting. It's true in the sartorial world, it's true in the musical world, it's true in any activity. My last question for Skander is that, as far as I know, before you were a metalhead.
Yeah.
You were playing even in a metal group, right?
Yes.
This is a kind of a strange conversion, right? And you showed us picture, you were long hair, new rock boots and all that
yes,
stuff.
great looking guy.
How all of a sudden you get this change, you know, and you became the man you are today. As far as I know, you wear a suit every day, right?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it means that if you want to play music at his conservatory, you have to wear a suit and a tie. I'm joking.
No, you don't.
I'm joking. But he will be most of the time in suit, even at home, right?
Yes. I mean, I have different levels of formality,
Of course,
what
me
I'm
too,
wearing, but
believe
pretty
me.
much, yes. I mean, I think it is important to feel outside the way we feel inside.
Yes.
And if we don't feel too great inside, maybe it's even more important to feel great outside to help you feel comforted and feel like, okay, no, things are, let's rise up to the occasion. I mean, like someone said to me once, like every day is an occasion, every day is important.
Yes.
So you should celebrate it. And I think it's one of the ways to do that as well. But yeah, beyond that, to go back to your question, I think the sartorial experience that I got into was more of an evolution for me in a way. I was always interested in detail and sophistication and things like that, but in a Gothic way.
Yes.
Before. So and then it turned into a more classic man thing. I guess I grew up a little bit too, but
it fits you very well, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that you contacted us and wanted to perform the Sartorial Talk theme song. And thanks to Justin, who actually composed it, it all came together. So we're really glad to get to know you.
So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, my friend. It was a pleasure to be with you. We appreciated this moment a lot. I think it shows that we are very comfortable here. We could continue for hours and hours, but Andrew on the other side of the camera in the control room, we're not going to be happy.
I think he's ready to
because
go.
I think he may have a dinner sometimes tonight. He must go back to his family. Anyway, it was a great pleasure to have you, Skander. Thank you, Sonya, for this beautiful moment. We give you an appointment to the next episode of Sartorial Talks. In the meantime, be well, stay well, take care of your family, take your time, ladies and gentlemen, and dress well. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.